At the highest level, how would you approach contractual risk management in 2023? I mean, here we are, all these years of experience in the space and seeing all these different claims. Like, what's the gold standard approach?
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, first of all, utilize these tech tools we're talking about. Utilize this coverage verification.
Mhm.
Utilize this automated systems that we've been describing.
Mhm.
Now, you need to understand and verify the coverages available.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, you also need to understand and optimize the contract requirements.
Mhm.
And I can talk a bit more about that if you want a little bit later as far as the differences between just what COI, certificates of insurance, tell you
Yeah.
versus the totality of the things you need to know. But at this
Yeah.
point, one of the things I love about the evidence system is that with the drop down, you just click on and it goes through, like if you're dealing with contractors. Well, here's the things that have been used with
Sure.
contractors. Okay, so do I need a waiver of subrogation? Do I need primary and non-contributory? Do I need so in other words, automatically that is going to get you into a better place than you would be if you were
Yeah.
not saying, oh yeah, I need that. Oh, let's click that. Oh
Right.
yeah, I need that. So we're already doing a good job, but it's like Thomas Edison said, there's always a better way to do
Yeah.
it. Find it.
Well,
And
yeah,
I believe in that.
that's great, and certainly we agree. And I would love for you to turn, if you would, for a second to kind of the total picture. In addition to verifying the coverages in place, what are the kind of total process to make sure that somebody is covered?
Well, okay, let me say this. The certificates of insurance really provide a lot of necessary information.
Hmm.
But because of these restricted coverage policies that I referenced
Hmm.
before, and they're being used by more and more carriers,
Hmm.
especially, I might add, to be very sure that we have the accurate requirements and plain, unequivocal requirements in the contract, because
Mm.
so many of these policies now, in order to trigger or to activate coverage, they require that the contract require it. In other words, your contract that you
Yeah,
sign with the contractor you hire essentially becomes an endorsement to their policy. And if
interesting.
you don't specifically require the coverage they have that you may need, guess
Sure.
what? If it was not required in the contract, even though the contractor has the coverage, it
Yes.
will not trigger the coverage so that it actually ends up paying a claim. Now, a lot of people don't know
Interesting.
that.
Right.
They
Absolutely.
don't know that. They don't know
Yeah.
that the contract, and I mean, even ISO now requires
Yeah.
explicit contract requirements. Even, let me give you an example. Even the additional insured endorsements, which people
Yeah.
think, oh, additional insured, you just pop an additional insured. And especially if in doubt, just put on a blanket additional insured.
Hmm. Hmm.
Got news for you, gang. Many of the blanket additional insureds will not pay a dime because they don't have what's called contract privity. Now, that's just a
Hmm.
fancy legal term, but what it means is most of the additional insured forms on these automatic forms, even with ISO, say that their contract for these requirements have to be with you.
Mm.
Which means let's take an owner who hires a GC who then hires subcontractors.
Oh,
All
yeah.
the subcontractors say, oh, Mr. Owner, Mr. GC, you're an additional insured. Guess what? They're not, because all these subs don't have a contract with the owner. Now, there are
Interesting.
some of the
Wow.
forms that provide that and
Yeah.
some that don't. You
Sure.
need to know
Which
which
one?
forms to use. And
Right.
then finally on that subject, I would say this, and this is varies by state. We
Yeah.
can talk nationally with regard to the coverage with ISO and a lot of the standardization and so forth. But the complexity of the indemnification is much more difficult. But here's the point. In each state, certain types of indemnification is allowed, anywhere from relatively modest indemnification to very broad.
Okay.
And what you do is you match that in your contract to whatever your specific state requirements allow. And
Mm.
then, and here's the key,
Hmm.
you make sure that the insurance carrier is in fact going to have an effective, it's known as contractual liability coverage,
Mm.
because there's so many things they can do to diminish or even exclude or dramatically
Wow.
reduce
Yeah.
that contractual liability coverage. So
Yeah.
you think here. Here, the contractor, you're saying the contract says, I'll indemnify you. His insurance company says, oh, we'll insure you for the indemnification. And then
Yeah.
they take away parts of the indemnification that are common to contracts. So
Wow.
you've got to work your way through all of
Wow.
those kinds of specific complex details in order to be sure that you're up to snuff.